I was sitting down to film a video about neo-reactionary Dark Enlightenment billionaire Peter Thiel's recent interview with the New York Times. And when I opened up my TikTok app, I saw a video from my mutual hawk that so perfectly dovetails with what I want to talk about. So let me share his video really quickly, and then I want to share a little bit from the Thiel interview, and then I want to talk about why I think that they are so perfectly connected.
It is time to end the 1% in the billionaire class.
I mean, you will get zero disagreement from me on that assertion. I made a video years ago on my YouTube where I was like, we shouldn't have billionaires. They shouldn't exist. There's no such thing as an ethical billionaire, and there shouldn't be such a thing as a billionaire at all. And there are many, many reasons why that is. Obviously, as a permaculture person who believes in fair share, which is also called set limits to consumption, I find it morally reprehensible, unconscionable that anyone should hoard that vast quantity of resources. In fact, someone said in my comments the other day that if somebody hoards cats to the extent that billionaires hoard money, we consider it a mental illness and we get intervention for them. If somebody hoards physical, material goods and possessions the same way that billionaires hoard money, right? My grandma was a hoarder. Her house was stacked up to the ceiling with everything, and there were like narrow pathways to get through her house by the end of her life. If we all know that like that's mental illness, right? We all know that that's a response to trauma, and we treat it as such, but we treat hoarding money, more money than you could spend in 10 or 50 lifetimes. We treat that as a good thing, as a laudable thing in American society. Let me show you this clip from the New York Times from the other day. This is Peter Thiel, who is a billionaire. I actually only have 1 degree of separation between me and Peter Thiel. That's maybe a story for another day. So I have like a little bit more insight than your average person onto what a pathetic pseudo-intellectual he is. Now, this interview freaked a lot of people out because Thiel is incredibly wealthy, right? He spent $15 million just on J.D. Vance's primary race in Ohio for Senate. He is throwing mad money around trying to enact his terrible vision for the future. Money that he made largely off of our tax dollars through government contracts, Defense Department contracts. He said way back in 2009 that democracy and freedom were incompatible. And it has been his mission since then to try to dismantle American democracy and institute an authoritarian, capitalist, feudal state in which he and his other technocrat bros would have absolute power, and they would basically be feudal lords, little monarchs ruling over their various little city-states. When he says freedom and democracy are not compatible, what he means is that democracy is not compatible with his desire to be free, to enslave you, to have total control over you and me and every other American, all of our financial resources and the planet. Let me just show you a little clip here because I want to tie it back to what Hawk said at the beginning. And I need you to just see what Peter Thiel is like in an interview, because I know his money and his vision for the future are really scary things. But, you know, remember when everybody said that Elon Musk was incredibly charismatic and incredibly intellectual, and everyone was really scared of him running the American government and being the true president behind Donald Trump? And then we heard him talk a bunch and people got to know him a little bit better. And I said way back in January that the more people see of Elon Musk, the more he will give them the ick, because he's not profoundly intellectual, confident, witty, charismatic, or even capable. And within a matter of months, he made himself deeply unpopular, lost billions of dollars, and is basically a laughingstock. Okay, watch Peter Thiel. Think about what I just said about Elon Musk and watch this clip of Peter.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would.
Spit it out.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit
Should
in this.
the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, you know, it's always, I don't know, you know, yeah, transhumanism.
I know I keep saying this over and over again, but we have got to stop giving the fascists and the Nazis more power than they actually have. Neither Elon Musk nor Peter Thiel have some kind of super intellectual prowess. I know that it is so easy to give these guys more power than they have, to believe that they are these supervillains who are inevitable and that their terrible fringe plans will be enacted. I know it is so tempting to believe that just because somebody is mentally ill enough to hoard billions and billions of dollars, just because somebody's daddy didn't love them enough and they're so emotionally immature and fragile that they cannot find contentment with their tremendous wealth, and thus they seek to oppress others and inflict suffering. That doesn't mean that they are intellectual. It doesn't mean that their plans are going to come to fruition. It doesn't mean that they are inevitable. Stop giving them power that they do not have. Please stop believing these men when they try to convince you that they are super geniuses. They are deeply insecure, deeply discontented people. But what's more than that is that they're not that smart. Money does not equate to intellectual prowess, and it definitely does not equate to morality. And it doesn't equate to inevitability either. Let me play you one more little clip from this interview of Peter and his pretentious, superficial word salad that he believes is intellectual prowess on full display when really it's just, well, okay, let me play the clip and then I want to read some of the comments under the video because I think they're important.
Let's articulate this.
And you can have a heretical form of Christianity, that says something else.
I don't know. I think the word nature does not occur once in the Old Testament, and so if you and there is a word in which a sense in which.
So remember what Hawk said at the beginning of this video about billionaires, and then let me read a couple comments. Peter just confirming that billionaires are in fact sociopathic and shouldn't exist. What does Thiel know about transforming one's soul? He doesn't have one. When billionaires are bored, they ruin society. Another reason why once you get to 100 million, you should be taxed in 90 to 95%. No one needs this much money and power. Pseudo-intellectualism among the wealthy is such a huge threat to humanity. I completely agree. He needs to heal from his childhood trauma because we're all paying for it at the present. Yeah, men will do anything rather than go to therapy. Men will destroy democracy and seek to enslave millions rather than go to therapy. This comment, billionaires think they're smart just because they have money. Yeah, and they're surrounded by yes men who, fillet their egos. Every time I listen to a billionaire talk, I realize that everything we have been told about how smart and worthy these people are, it was just propaganda. I really liked this last comment. This man does not get to decide what happens to the human race. I feel like the show Succession is more relevant today than when it came out. It was very much predictive of what we're going through now. And there was this character, Lucas Matson, who I know was supposed to be an Elon Musk kind of character, but he really is a stand-in for any of these technocrat bros. He was somebody who very much believed he was above everything and that he was some master chess player and he was manipulating everybody else and that he could do whatever he wanted, but he was so cringy and embarrassing and really not that smart and profoundly insecure. And I think the writers of Succession really had this brand of technocrat bro billionaire pegged, and not in the way I'm sure they would like to have it done. But I want to leave you here with a comment from The Nation back in 2022. Because while I think there are myriad excellent arguments as to why we should not have billionaires and they should be taxed out of existence, the technocrat bros and what they are doing to American democracy and what they are trying to get away with, I think are one of the more compelling examples. So this is what Corey Payne, who studies the Dark Enlightenment, and Curtis Yarvin, etc., had to say about Peter Thiel back in 2022. As a writer, I find it depressing that one rich man's favor can elevate pseudo-intellectual fascist dreck to this exalted status. What's worse is that Thiel's money has put us all in the position of needing to defend fundamental values, such as the right of the people to select their own leaders through a fair and transparent process, and equality under the law. This twisted anti-democracy ideology is as much a product of Silicon Valley as any app or gadget. The elevation of Yarvin to Republican luminary is an argument for confiscating and redistributing the wealth of all billionaires. I completely agree.